It's clear from their vacant expressions, the lights are not all on upstairs, but we're talking Prince Imrik and dragons, even dinos can be caught unawares. So I implore you, please pay attention. My words are a matter of pride. It's time to unleash the lions. There's nowhere left for the lizards to hide. But I'm not sure they need to, because we're back on SFO Grimhammer and predators stalk the jungle once more. Lizardmen vs High Elves, and this one is Imrik of Caledor busts out the Dragon Horn War Lion strat, and the Children of the Old Ones, led by Gorok the Great White Lizard, look to counter with some magic of their own. So this is a tactic that's seen some play over the last several months in Vanilla Realm. It's a Cav core with a ton of Silver Helms and White Lions, paired with Dragon Horn, which is Imrik's global WA ability. And High Elf Lance Cavalry have AP in SFO, which should help quite a bit when trying to punch through Lizardmen. However, Imrik is a bit different in this mod. His Lord of Dragons isn't a dramatic single target debuff anymore, and his Dragon Horn can only be cast once, which is actually a change I don't really like. I'm not sure why it got reduced to only one charge, but either way, the game plan's pretty simple. Go full-on rush with the Lion Prides of Krace, team them up with the Elite Noble Cavalry of Caledor and Silver Helms, and run stuff over while imbued with speed and melee buffs. War Lions, of course, have AP and bonus versus Infantry, but they also have Bleed, so if you can give them some support, they can do work not just against foot troops, but against mounted troops as well. And to help them in their quest, a Light Mage with Faw's Protection and Barona's Time Warp. Plus 35 melee attack and 50% speed in an AoE is absolutely glorious, so that will hopefully be the spice on top that turns the tides. But across Toothgrass Hill come the dinosaurs of Lustria, ready to defend their homeland, and defense will be the focus of their magic here as well. Pan's Impenetrable Pelt and Weissen's Wild Form are actually both very good spells to hold the line against a Barona's Time Warp Cab build, and they're both pretty cheap and spammable as well, so that War of Magic should be interesting to see develop. Perhaps even more importantly, as we take a look at the Overcast version, it is an area of effect spell. So if you want to get that damage reduction in an AoE, you can, and that will be a great counter to the massive cavalry charging in from the flank with Barona's Time Warp active. And Silver Helms can get up to like close to 100 speed when they have that active on themselves. Gorok, of course, has his Mace of Ulamak and the Shield of Eons as per usual. Functions the exact same way in SFO Grimhammer as he does in the base game. And over here, we have the Honor Guard of Hexadol, bonus versus Infantry Temple Guard that have some super good buffs, and in fact, they even grant missile resistance 50% in an AoE to any Lord or Hero that is nearby. So if your Mazda Mundi on a Stegodon is getting shot up, have them nearby, and he ain't gonna be dying to that focus fire anytime soon. Over here, we have Teachy Weechy's Raiders, which are just one of the coolest additions to SFO Grimhammer. I adore them. 90 speed, Horde 1 cavalry mounted by Skinks. They are terrifying out on the flank. They've got amazing stats, bonus for large, AP, and all that maneuverability means that bringing them to blows is not a simple proposition, not by a long shot. So, Saurus in the front ranks, and Lizardmen are going to be playing defensively here, reacting to the powerful Cav and Lion Corps that Imrik has led on crusade into the bowels of Lustria. And in a perfect world, if you're the Asdar anyway, the Lizardmen wouldn't have brought a bunch of AP Cav. They wouldn't have Teachy Weechy's Raiders that can beat the brakes off a Silver Helm unit, and they could just go in and cause some havoc amongst hordes of Lizardmen infantry and dinos. Unfortunately, Children of the Old Ones brought tons of Raptor Cav, and they're playing very defensively with them, while the Stegodon uses its bolt throw to just pound those Silver Helms into paste. And each one of those shots is straight up shish kebabbing 4 or 5 models. I mean, that's brutal penetration right there. It's like when Daniel Craig is talking to Vesper in Casino Royale. She's like, how are the Silver Helms? Skewered. One sympathizes. It's been brutal for the heavy cav of the High Elves so far, and frankly, they probably should not have gotten in range of the Stegodon in the first place. It does have reduced range in SFO. I think it's like 420 in the base game. Nice. But I think it's like 225 or 250 or... It's a lot shorter anyway in SFO. So, yeah, they probably should not have gotten that close. To be honest, the bolt thrower did more damage than I think anyone should have rightfully expected it to do. And the cavalry has taken a bit of a beating. They've lost about maybe 18 models or so across all their cav units so far. Not the biggest deal in the world, but probably not ideal either. And the Silver and Guard are moving in now Now, Silver Guard are a great frontline unit against Lizardmen. They can typically beat Saurus. They can hold the line against dinos and pretty much anything the Lizardmen can throw at them. They will, of course, lose in a drag it out fight to Temple Guard and that kind of thing, but of course, in SFO Grimhammer, they have some different tools, like bonus versus Infantry Temple Guard that have AoE attacks, area of effect attacks, like those Honor Guard, and that might turn things a little bit more in the Lizardmen's favor. So, of course, Imrik and his cavalry have a lot of work to do here, but so far they have not found an opening to go in. Weisson's wild form has popped in the front ranks. War Lions have committed to the fray, seem to be retreating in the face of that Stegodon, though, and the White Lions of Krace, with their banner carrier plunging into the fold up against Saurus warriors. White Lions are, of course, a much higher tier unit in SFO. They will be able to beat the brakes off of Saurus warriors. Meanwhile, though, the Honor Guard of Hexadol, they are going to have a wondrous time in and amongst these Silverin Guard. Area of effect attacks are brutal when combined with bonus versus infantry, and when you look at their base stats, which are 65 melee attack, 50 melee defense, missile resist to Gorok nearby, they're bringing a lot of utility and killing power to the Saurus front lines, and that'll make it difficult for these spears that typically perform very well against Lizardmen to win in their 1v1 engagements. And this is brilliant play from Lizardmen so far. Skink cohort in the front to poison, to javelin down the enemy troops as they charge in, and the Silver Helms still have not found an opening to attack, but now Rahagra's Pride plunging into the flank, Mighty Roar popping off, lowering melee defense and speed in a massive area of effect, and that is the opening the High Elves need here. Imrik's cavalry don't want to take a fight when Saurus and Skinks and Teechi-Weechi's raiders are all sitting on top of each other. They won't perform well in a drag-it-out melee grind like that one, but once Rahagra's Pride and the White Lions link up and kill a few Saurus, that'll force the reserves to commit, and that opens the door for the Noble Cav to strike into the heart of this Lizardmen defense. So, at this point, the Old One's legions have positioned themselves very well. They've made it difficult for Imrik's cavalry to do what it wants to do, but now there is a little bit of an opening, and Barona's Time Warp going down. Look at that area of effect, plus 50% speed, plus 35 melee attack, and the cavalry will look to disengage, and look how easy it was for them to do so. That speed, when you're up near 100, it becomes pretty easy to pull away from infantry anyway, and they'll use that opportunity to scoot around and maybe get into the rest of the Lizardmen rear. Now, there are two Silver Helms that were left behind. They will take some damage in that fight, but they're absorbing a lot of the Lizardmen army, and they should be able to disengage pretty smoothly with that plus 50% speed buff. Meanwhile, two War Lions on top of the Silverin Guard working on the Saurus shields and trying to bring them down. So, Lizardmen's defense in depth approach, playing reactively, very defensively with their Raptor Cav, has put them in a strong position so far. But the High Elves have 4 War Lions, and their prides are famished, they hungry, and they simply have more infantry killing potential than the Lizardmen do. Especially as that bleed contact effect begins to spread, draining the life from Saurus and Skink cohort. Lots of reptiles for them to munch on here. The big question is, can the High Elves take a decisive engagement against Teechi-Weechi's raiders and the rest of the Cold One Cav? So far, they have not been able to do it, but they can use their more impressive speed. Besides Teechi-Weechi's raiders, who have 90 speed, they can outrun the rest of them. Dragon Princes will get up over 100 with Barona's Time Warp active, so they should be able to pick and choose their engagements pretty well. Another's Faw's Protection going down, this time defensive buff for all the War Lions and Silver Helms on this flank, and a big brawl developing on the Lizardmen left. Infantry, not going to perform well against Rahagra's Pride. They have big bonus versus infantry. They have big scary jaws, big rending claws. You cannot be prepared for an assault like that one if you're a little skinky boy. There's just no way they can win a fight like that. Again, Mighty Roar going down. It is a passive in SFO Grimhammer. It is not an active ability. Anytime the War Lions are winning, on a 60-second cooldown, there will be an automatic Mighty Roar that goes out, which means you have a lot more uptime than you do in vanilla. It's a very powerful debuff. Silver Helms have been beaten up, but the Raptor Cav have taken some damage as well. Everything trying to disengage and look for a way to link up with the Dragon Princes and Imrik, who are looking quite healthy, and this is what the High Elves want right now. This is what they need and what they needed from the beginning. They want this Raptor cavalry isolated. There is a licensed wild form going down that will give them more base weapon strength, and some nice javelins from the rear will certainly hurt the Dragon Princes, but with a Barona's Time Warp about to go down from the Light Wizard, plus 35 melee attack, now over 100 MA, even Teachy Weechy's Raiders cannot deal with such an elite cavalry unit, especially when it's supported by Imrik of Caledor. They melted under that charge and that Barona's Time Warp, and one of the most important units for the Lizardmen is now off the field, and that opens up everything on this side of the battle. The rest of the Raptor cavalry overextended, or at least lost its support. The infantry is gone because of the War Lions, and Dragon Princes, with that patented, famous, iconic hammer and anvil play, all the Raptor cav is gone now, and that is a huge loss for the children of the old ones. They just lost most of their mobility in the span of a couple seconds here. I must say, I enjoy Dragon Princes having armor piercing on their lances. It really makes them hit a lot harder in those cavalry engagements, which they already perform relatively well in the base game, but man, their hammer and anvils are so brutal here. Pan's impenetrable pelt going off on the skink cohort, and Allosaurus around Gorak, the great white lizard. The Lizardmen still have a strong center, a strong core, but they have lost out on the flank. Another Cold One unit coming in from the jungle. I guess not all the cavalry is gone. They must have been in reserve this entire time, and that could be a problem for the High Elf cav, which is pretty beaten up at this point. Their Dragon Princes should do well against anything that comes their way, but the Silver Helms have been punished severely by that Stegodon Bolt Thrower and by their engagements with the Raptor cav. Foz protection on the White Lions and the Dragon Prince Elite, but it seems like they don't want to take the engagement right now, and it's probably because that Stegodon is nearby. Now, Imrik does have bonus force large and armor piercing on his lance. He should be able to do well against the Stegodon in a 1v1 fight, but if a bunch of Raptor cav are nearby, he'll be a little bit more hesitant to take that fight, and the Raptor cav is coming back from a hammer and anvil. All the buffs, all the debuffs are going down. It's Barona's Time Warp, Shield of Eons, Stand Your Ground, Mace of Ulamak, everything getting popped, and we're gonna see how this goes. At the moment, it is balance of power in favor of the Azur, but the Rock of Itzo remains that bulwark in the center, and his Honor Guard have been untouched this entire game. They have mulched their way through rank after rank, body after body thrown their way. The Silver Guard had no chance in their fight with them, and they're still munching on everything. Stegodon is still relatively healthy at this point, and the High Elves are, well, the terror is beginning to set in. Take a look at that. Silver Helms, War Lions, bunch of units breaking off, and that is perhaps one of the weaknesses of this Imrik of Caledor build. They do not have any source of terror to just clear off infantry quickly. But this is one way for them to do so. Brutal. Savage. Wrecked. Skink cohort taking the brunt of that War Lion of Craze charge, and they're gonna be dinner. They are gonna be kitty cat food. I want chicken. I want liver. Meow mix, skink cohort deliver, please. The Lizardmen are just being eviscerated at this point in the battle. Those skink cohort eaten alive, but the Silver Guard are also being munched down by those massive obsidian Maqueedles, and the Honor Guard of Hexadol so far have not met a single troop type on this battlefield that has a chance of killing them. And the Stegodon is still running over stuff, still causing terror, and making those High Elves retreat over here. Now, there is an opportunity for the Dragon Princes and Silver Helms who have that armor piercing to go in, but it looks like they neglected to go for the Stegodon and instead try to get rid of some of that isolated infantry. But Stegodon coming in from the flank now might have been a mistake there. Even with Barona's Time Warp, it will help them run away, but it won't help them kill stuff because everything is routing. And when you're routing, you're not hitting. And when you're not hitting, you aren't killing. All that stuff just broke off. Balance bar swung back a little bit in favor of the Lizardmen. They don't have much left. In fact, they have almost nothing. They have a full-strength unit of Honor Guard. That's what, 12 models of Temple Guard, or 20? Not very many. Gorak, Stegodon, the Amber Wizard, and a Saurus unit. That's it. High Elves just began rallying, many of their troops coming back, but they're close to the White Line. Imrik of Caledor is looking very healthy. I'd be very curious to see how he would do in a fight with Gorak, the Great White Lizard, or even with that Stegodon. I think he would be able to beat the Stegodon, but the issue is, it just has so much less HP to work with. Silver Helms and Dragon Prince is breaking off. In fact, Silver and Guard and Silver Helms just shattered completely. Dragon Prince is so close to that White Line and so fast, they might not have an opportunity to return. And that might have been a catastrophic blow when the High Elves chose to commit against Gorak and the Stegodon when the rest of their troops on the flanks were winning. Because they probably could have waited a little bit longer and linked up with everything, gotten a full surround off and attacked from all sides at one time. Now Barona's Time Warp is going down, and it's a good attack. It's a multi-pronged attack, but they've got to deal with a full-strength unit of elite, legendary Temple Guard, and a dinosaur that has not shown any signs of slowing down. Cold-Blooded is keeping it in the fight for now. Leadership really helping out. Fast protection making Imrik almost impossible to hit. So he'll do fine in a duel with either Stegodon or with Gorak. White Lions getting the engagement they'd like to, using their armor sundering to chunk through some of these Temple Guard, but they just have too much HP right now, and their area of effect attacks cutting through even the elite of Krace. White Lions breaking off, and now everything beginning to waver for the Azure. Lizardmen looking very strong right now. Imrik has maybe one chance here to take out the dinosaur, and if he can do that, maybe they can claw this one back, but it's looking pretty dire for the High Elves at this point. And even with Rahaga's Pride and their bleed contact effect and their bonus versus infantry and their great stats, I don't think the High Elves have anything that can scratch the honor guard of Hexadol at this point in the battle. They fought well, they fought hard, but they needed some psycho-charging from the Dragon Princes and from the Silver Helms to chunk through that legendary unit. And really, the way you deal with them is you ignore them, kill everything else, and then just surround them at the end and force them to get hit by army losses, and that's how you would defeat a legendary unit like this one. Not really OP here. I mean, they really just killed Silver and Guard, which they're meant to do. That's what their unit is designed to do. But yeah, you would have to leave them for the end. And typically you're not going to go for Sword Masters in this type of build. So there is plenty of bonus versus infantry and stuff that could have killed them, but it all died off. And really a lot of it came down to some of those early engagements. I think the Lizardmen did a great job of that defense in-depth approach of delaying the inevitable Silver Helm and Dragon Prince attack, and meanwhile inflicting some punishing losses on the Azure during the rest of that. I mean, the cavalry kind of had to sit back. They couldn't just go into Saurus that would block the charge and allow the TG Weech's Raiders and the Cold Ones to counter-charge. So they had to wait for an opening, and once that opening came, they did okay. I mean, Silver Helms weren't amazing this game, but Dragon Princes did well. War Lions did very well across the board. But really, I think the turning point came about 2/3 of the way through the battle when I committed all my stuff to getting rid of the dinosaur and basically just started getting terror routed. I didn't really need to commit there. As you saw, I was winning out on the flanks. What I should have done is wait a little bit longer, have a bit more patience, maybe 45 seconds to a minute, clean up all that stuff, and then have everything collapse in at once from all sides, get that full surround off, and then maybe might have been able to bust through and ultimately cause some routing on the Lizardman line. And if I'm able to do that, if I'm able to break the Stegodon off and isolate it, Imrik can easily run it down with his AP and bonus versus large and might be able to eke out a win there. But the cavalry, even though they didn't get lots of kills for Lizardmen, they made a big impact just by making it difficult for the Silver Helms and Dragon Princes to get at the source and at the Temple Guard. And obviously, that Stegodon, tons of damage value, over 3,000 with the Bolt Thrower. No real reason to get that close with the Silver Helms early on. Took some unnecessary casualties there. Honor Guard were amazing. They did so much work. Killed a bunch of Silverin, bunch of the infantry. But yeah, I think this kind of build for the High Elves can work very well. When you combine that with Dragonhorn, all the War Lion and Silver Helms together, it's just, you're swarming the field with high charge bonus stuff. Give them Barona's Time Warp, overload a flank. Strategy can absolutely work. It was solid here, but Zach Bisane played better, and he deserved the win. GG.